So in Houston, I'm John Herder. It's Tuesday, 18th day of May. Great as always to have you along, everybody. In a nutshell, From the Experts is a compressed virtual networking accelerator, helping people across industries connect very quickly in a brief, moderated, interactive show format. That's like a TED Talk with interactive discussion. So what's in it for you? If all goes well, your curiosity is sparked, new ideas come to light, and you may have helped yourself and somebody else here solve a problem. Make a connection, reach that opportunity a little bit faster. Networking has never been more important for your business. Today's show is the second episode in our Porter Hedges Underwriter mini-series focused on key legal trends influencing business leaders today. Please take note that we've added bonus time to this special issue. That's giving you 15 more minutes with our expert in a smaller breakout room directly following the regular show. Everybody gets invited. You choose if you want to join. So folks, help me welcome our guest expert, Laura Alaniz. Partner Porter Hedges, practicing in Texas since 1996, board certified labor and employment law. She represents employers in all types of employment disputes, regularly advising clients on compliance issues and related to employment-related laws and prevention of claims. So Laura, so glad you could be here with us today. The COVID-19 precautions that companies must take to keep their workers safe kind of seem like a moving target right now. So what are you seeing from your vantage point as an expert in this field?
So I absolutely agree. It is a moving target. And last week we got thrown another curveball when the CDC issued the new guidance on masks. And the part about the new guidance was it actually created more questions than it did answers. And so now not only are employers trying to figure out how do I maintain a safe workplace, or as they're working on their protocols, how do I create a protocol that keeps my workers safe? Now, what do I do about masks? So I want to talk a little bit about, how you address some of this new guidance and how it may affect your reopening plans or maybe change your current safety protocols. But before we get too far, I wanted to get a poll and just kind of get an idea of how many of you are already back to the office.
Well, we heard from Craig a little bit earlier on that they're getting ready to go in about a week. It'll be interesting to see what the other folks say. So we've got about 53 people are coming in strong here. So folks, if you can answer it, let's finish that. We got about 70%. Interesting. All right, a couple more seconds. All right, that's about, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and send that result to everybody so we can see what this group says. About half.
Yep, about half. So there's some of you that are trying to figure out, do I update my protocol? And some of you are like, well, I'm working on it. How do I address this? And so let's specifically talk about what that CDC guidance said. So it stated that fully vaccinated persons can go without masks, either indoors or outdoors, and you don't have to worry about that social distancing. So that creates the question of, well, what do I do with my non-vaccinated workers? And more importantly, I'm sure a lot of employers haven't even decided, are they going to mandate the vaccine or what they're going to do about that vaccine? And so everyone's sort of this influx on what are we doing? And so I don't know if a lot of you have seen some of the news reports out there where you have employers, the big employers, going all over the place. So I've seen Starbucks, for example, they said they're going to allow their customers who are vaccinated to go without masks, but their employees are still required to wear masks. Then you have on the other side, Walmart, that's taken a slightly different approach. All their customers can go without masks if they're vaccinated, and their employees can as well, but they have to fill out a questionnaire that says that, yes, they're vaccinated. And then you have the ones on the other end of the spectrum, Kroger's and Macy's, who said, you know what, we're just not changing our policy. So as employers, whether you're in the office or about ready to go back what do you do? So we basically said, proceed with caution, because first of all, you may, depending on where you are, you may have local and state rules that still apply. I think I heard, for example, New Jersey, they're going to keep theirs in place. In Texas, our mask mandate was gone. But then you may have some local jurisdictions, maybe some cities that still require masks. So, that's probably where you first have to look, is what is our current, governmental agency that governs us? What are they saying? But let's say you're in a jurisdiction like mine that says you don't have to wear a mask. And they're also opposed to what they call the vaccine passport. So what do you do with that? And so what we're hearing is that, and what we're kind of telling our clients, especially here in Texas, is proceed with caution, because you're still going to have a subset of employees that aren't vaccinated yet. And you're still required to protect those employees. And, the easy thing is, well, what does OSHA tell us? Well, OSHA just recently put on its website that it's reviewing the CDC guidance, and it will update its materials accordingly. But in the meantime, please refer to the guidance on measures to appropriately protect your fully vaccinated workers. Okay, that doesn't help us at all. That doesn't really tell us anything on how exactly are we supposed to deal with vaccinated versus unvaccinated. So again, it comes back to, it's actually safer to keep the mask mandates in place until we get just better guidance. And then more importantly, until the employers kind of develop their policy on what you're going to do. So I've heard employers that are requiring the vaccine. And so if you're in the office that has everyone is vaccinated, then I think that's a little bit easier, that of course, well, everyone can go without masks because everyone's fully vaccinated and we're in compliance with the CDC guidance. But if you're not one of those employers who are still, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, then you have to be able to still protect those non-vaccinated workers. So let's talk a little bit about vaccines. We have another poll question. I'm curious to see what everyone is doing about vaccines.
Hey, while Laura, could you that we have here? Gus, can you mute? Hopefully it's not me. There we go. So what's the legal obligation towards the vaccinated versus unvaccinated? Can employers really ask employees if they've had experimental vaccine? Can you require it?
All right, so that's two questions. So first, let's talk about the EOC guidance. So the EOC guidance says that yes, as employers, you can mandate the vaccine, but they also caution to proceed with caution, because while you can mandate the vaccine, you still have to be able to accommodate workers that may have a medical condition or a strongly held religious belief and don't want to or aren't able to take the vaccine. So yes, you can, with caveats on you have to accommodate certain workers, and you really need to have a program in place to where you address any kind of potential workers that need an accommodation.
Right. So you can see the results here.
Yep. Looks like a vast majority of you are encouraging it, and we still have a good portion that just haven't decided yet. One point that I wanted to mention is, can you ask for a proof of vaccine? Yes. And the EOC has come out and said that you can ask for a proof of vaccine, but you keep it limited to, did you get the vaccine or not? And you can ask for the verification that they've gotten it. And I think I got a question on, well, what if you have an employee that doesn't have a disability or religious belief and just doesn't want to take the vaccine? So under the guidance, if they don't meet even those conditions, then as employer, you can require them to take the vaccine. And if they don't take it, you can terminate. So I know it can be harsh, but it is allowed. But again, you do really have to make sure that you have that program in place to where you are letting employees that, may not have said the magic words, or, hey, I have a disability, I can't say it, I can't take the vaccine, that you are really making sure you drill down and give those potential accommodations. Because, for example, I've actually seen where here in Houston, the Houston Methodist Hospital is requiring the vaccine. And one of the nurses is refusing to take the vaccine. And this is in the news reports, that she doesn't want to take it because she still wants to see that there's a better track record for vaccines, and she's just not ready. But the hospital said June 7th, you got to get the vaccine and we're going to terminate. And so the problem with that is they have the right to terminate because she doesn't have a disability and she's not claiming a strongly held religious belief. But she's also threatening to file a lawsuit. So as employers, do we really want to get into that kind of sticky mess where there's no real good guidance out there and there's no real track record? And, maybe some of the bigger employers like Houston Methodist, are happy to take that. And, and they're in a different situation I think that particular nurse was actually dealing with COVID patients. So for her not to be vaccinated and around patients potentially spreading the virus, that could pose a direct threat to other workers and, more important, patients that can get vaccinated. So for them, it kind of makes sense. But if you're just in an office environment, does that make sense for you as an employer to be able to mandate? So hey, that's the big question.
Tim, Catherine, and Margaret, thanks for those. And we got a couple more, Craig and Wade. So they're talking about, well, what if, can we do something different for the new employees versus the existing employees? And the second one was, if you mandate, can you require them to provide that proof? Where are we on that?
So I'll do with the easy one. So the easy ones, can you require them to have proof? Yes. According to EOC, you can absolutely, you can ask, did you get vaccinated? Please show me your vaccine card. You can definitely do that. The harder question is that, well, can I require new hires to get vaccinated? So I believe it's Delta. Delta has actually started that policy where if they're new hires, they're requiring them to do the vaccine. And so I would say, I think you can, because you can differentiate them. They are new hires. We're starting the new policy, but it always creates an issue when you have different requirements for different employees. So there's always some traps that are involved. It's always better to have a blanket policy. On that one, I think they can make it work because it's all new hires. And they can say they're still working on the protocols for the ones that are, currently employed, but got to be careful on those.
Got it.
All right. Any other kind of questions that this kind of brings into you're kind of concerned about, or how do you address?
Yeah, there was one that Tim just comes forward with. 50%, 60% of the people don't want it and haven't gotten the vaccine. Then there will be challenges staffing if you require the vaccine, right?
Absolutely. And so, and that's where it comes to, what does it make sense for your business? If you're not going to be able to get the staff that you need, I mean, even if you require it, but you're just not going to be able to hire and fill those positions, then it's going to be hard to run your business. At the end of the day, you got to figure out what's best for my business. So maybe the answer to that is we can encourage. Can we give some incentives? You can, but the problem with the incentives is you can't give large incentives. It can't be too high. So that's why all you're seeing is we'll give you pay time off, or some employers are offering the vaccine on premises so they can make it easier. But it's not like you can give them, I'll give you $1,000. That's probably too high. And that might violate some of the regulations regarding wellness programs. So, at the end of the day, I think you have to figure out what works for your business. And if it's your decision as a business, we're just not going to have the right staffing. If we require it, then that's when you're going to have to, look at, I'm going to need those stricter protocols. Am I going to have to make everybody wear masks, keep that social distancing? Yeah, you probably will have to, because there's also one of the unanswered questions is, if I let my vaccinated workers not wear masks, but require my non-vaccinated to wear masks, that is that will tell you which ones are vaccinated, which ones are not. And does that create other issues of, is it disclosing their vaccine immunization, which is supposed to be protected? So lots of traps, and unfortunately no clear answers.
So a little different version of that. Cherise says, well, can you mandate that only certain groups of employees are vaccinated, like the IT guys who are touching computers and stuff like that?
So I think you can. And so the advice would be that if you're picking a particular group like the IT, I think that's a great one to talk about, that if they're all, kind of close together, and not all of them are vaccinated, then you can say, hey, look, because you're so close together, we can't put some measure in place to protect you. We're going to need you all to take the vaccine. So I think you can. You just have to have a business reason for doing that. So you can't just say, oh, I'm going to let, A, B, and C take it in this department, but not let the other ones not require it. You can't do that. So if you're going to, try to allow some people to do it, some people not, I would do it with the same, same job descriptions, maybe in the same department, just so you can justify why you've picked that particular group versus another group.
Got it. Another one, what about contractors working on your site?
Well, as contractors, you can, I know, some people may not have been requiring, but as a part of your contract, you may be able to require it. So you would say that, we're not going to hire you if you don't have the vaccine.
What about those guys versus employees in the same grouping?
Well, so the difference is for employees, employers have greater obligations to protect their employees, and they're subject to the ADA and all of those regulations. But with independent contractors, those discrimination laws don't apply. So you have a little bit more flexibility with independent contractors versus an employee that there are a lot greater protections for.
Right. Last variability there. What about interns? Any difference?
If interns are employees, even if they're just for the summer, I think those would be the same.
Right. So another question is, what's the response of those that are kind of comparing this flu shots, and the choice to take it, no requirements and no tracking of it? It's kind of a slippery slope, questioning why a company, would not question other health test proof to show they can't infect others. So, how are these vaccine actions allowed within HIPAA, OSHA, and the others, protected and not allowed?
Well, so part of it is that we're relying on the EEOC. So the EEOC has come out very strongly and said, and put out that guidance. It was back in December when the latest guidance came out and said that because of COVID, because it is so infectious, they are sort of allowing a little bit more flexibility than they are with other diseases. So it's allowed because EEOC has come out and said, our interpretation of the ADA is that we're going to allow this to happen under certain parameters.
Right. Is every business required to create a policy program regarding vaccination before everyone gets back into office?
Are you required? No, but should you? Absolutely. Because if you don't have that program in place and have those standards in place, and you treat somebody a little bit different because you don't have those standards in place, that's going to create some traps for you. So you really need to have that in place, so you're consistently treating all of your employees the same.
Yeah, got it. Okay. That's the last one that I've got on the board right now. Oh, wait, here's one more. How much protection is there that just because the EOC has said this, it's not legislation, seems like you're still open to a lawsuit having a different outcome decided by courts? Question mark?
I mean, I think that's a good point. I mean, there are times when the EEOC has come out and said one thing and the courts have disagreed with them and come up with a different conclusion. So are you still open? Yes. Now, I think the weight of it is because of this particular pandemic and how infectious this particular virus is, that's why they're able to come to their conclusions. But absolutely, you may have a court that can come to a different conclusion.
Right. Interesting from Catherine. She's like, okay, if you incentivize people to get the vaccine, do you reward those who got the vaccine anyway? Oh boy. I mean, yeah. can an employer be held liable for injuries if the vaccine is mandated for their employees? That's from Deborah Shelton.
So what I have seen on this is that if you have workers' comp, any kind of injuries that they can show is direct related from the vaccine, then it's mandated, then it usually becomes a workers' comp claim and it's addressed through that avenue. So that's where we're seeing most of it go to, is workers' comp claims.
Okay, cool. We said, Ray comes forward and says, hey, there's some proposed legislation he believes employer immunity was floated. Is any of that still actually pending?
There is, I think it might be under one of the more recent bills that has actually passed. There is some immunity for employers that allow vaccines on their premises. I mean, it's not extensive, but there's a few protections for that. But then again, if there's claims about I got sick because of the vaccine, that's going through workers' comp.
Got it. And Jared here just says, hey, by the way, his company's got an incentive, $100 HSA contribution for employees who choose to get vaccinated. So that's the way they're doing it there.
Yep. And so, $100, I mean, that's probably not considered too high. So that's probably going to be allowed, because that's the other issue, is the EOC hasn't said what is too high. So employers are sort of left to guess what that is.
Right. Okay. So do you have any last takes or thoughts before we move forward?
So I will say it's very complicated, and, proceed with caution. It's probably always safest to, have that social distancing and wearing masks if you're going to have, employees that aren't vaccinated, just to be safe until we get that clear guidance. We keep waiting for OSHA to come out with some guidance. And I've been waiting for that for a while now. So I would say in the meantime, if you're trying to be risk adverse, I would go with the more caution.
Got it. And here was your last question, right? That you wanted to get some feedback from the audience. We'll see what their take is.
Yeah, let us know what you think your office is going to look like in the future.
Okay, it looks like we've got just about all of it in now. This is what this group of people says. Pretty much hybrid. I guess you got about a quarter of folks saying they're going to go back full time. Nice.
Yeah. Okay.
Laura, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Folks, today's show is brought to you by our underwriters. Arion, the full service project engineering firm, respected, trusted, and highly valued by select energy industry clients. Porter Hedges, attorneys at law, the informed choice for complicated litigation in the energy business. InsurePoint, protecting what you care about most, people, profits, brand, and the environment. Alliance Benefit Group, building retirement plans for your business that work. Okay, Laura, so what do you say? Let's open the floor. Let's hear from some of the folks, some of you guys that are out there. So folks, the question that we'd like your input on, and you've seen this, we put the discussion question out there. How has the CDC guidance changed the way that you're returning to work or your current protocols? And Gus, if you take a minute and post that question out there so to make it easier for our team. And folks, when it's your turn, briefly introduce yourself, your business, and along with your take. And by the way, you can also drop that info in the chat if it's easier for you. So who would like to go first? Holt, are you still there? I think it'd be interesting to hear what's happening from your perspective.
Yeah, I'm still here. Well, the question was the CDC guidance.
Yeah.
How's that changed our perspective? Well, I work at Calumet Specialty Products. So we're a specialty hydrocarbon company. We make a lot of ingredients and chemicals that go into other products. But we have so many facilities across the country. We're still kind of waiting on OSHA. So far, we're playing it conservative and still having our people, mask up. All of our shared services and the headquarters and stuff, we're still, we're at 25% capacity. So we generally go in one day a week, but the folks that have to go in and be present every day in the manufacturing facilities and the refineries, they still have to mask up. So far, it hasn't changed our policies, but we're certainly having those discussions. And we're trying to tie in encouraging the vaccine. We have like a $50 vaccine incentive, but we're trying to tie that into, hey, everybody, if we all get vaccines, and you let our nurse case manager know, then we can start loosening the restrictions up. We can start taking the masks off, because obviously nobody likes wearing the mask. So we're trying to encourage people by tying it into loosening those restrictions.
Got it. Anybody else out there? Deborah, what about you? What's on your mind? What's happening?
Yeah, so I would say it's very similar to what Holt mentioned. Our manufacturing facilities obviously have been continuing to operate during the pandemic. And so we have protocols in place for social distancing where possible, and wearing masks, and have added additional safety measures with hand sanitizers and things like that to keep our manufacturing operations safe. But here in the corporate offices where I am, we still have the mask mandate. So if you're in a shared space, then masks are required.
Anybody else out there want to share
Hi,
your take?
this is Courtney Moser. I'm with Legal Access Plans, LLC in Houston, Texas. And we are a strictly corporate office setup. We have no customer face-to-face interaction. So we have, erred on the side of caution by continuing to require masks in a shared space, just like Deborah said, as well as hand sanitizers and things like that. But we are interested in trying to update our policies. So this has been very informative so far.
Well, good. Well, if you're interested, hang on. You can talk with Laura at the end here. Catherine, great to see you. And, from your perspective on the renewables utility you're working for, you may have more face-to-face. So what are you guys looking at in your office?
Right. So in my office, we do a lot of site inspections, because we're supporting projects that are doing energy efficiency around the city of DC. So we're still doing remote inspections. So instead of going to the customer site and looking around to see if they've actually changed their lighting to LEDs, we are having them send us photos. So internally, we're being so much more careful. Employees are not doing site visits for safety. And we've just made it to be that nobody has to go out there.
Interesting. Anybody else? Some thoughts or more questions, I suppose.
Hey, John, this is Tim.
Yeah,
I work for Shell, which is a Dutch company. So they tend to have a high focus on privacy concerns. And so there's been no change in the US with regard to wearing a mask in the office, but most people are remote working anyway. So there's not a lot of folks on campus. I think going forward, they'll reconfigure the office space to be far more meeting space for workshops and things like that. And they'll continue to do remote working because it's been so successful. And those that want to be on campus can be on campus. So what the future holds as far as masks go, I'm not sure. I'm sure they're evaluating that based on a lot of factors week in and week out as they make plans for employees returning more and more to campus.
Thanks, Tim. And that's many campuses. And I think that'll be interesting. And probably regional in how people behave, I imagine.
Yeah, I was going to add that too, that I'm sure there will be different regional guidelines around that.
Yeah, thanks. So Charisse is, my speaker's not working well. In our corporate headquarters, the CDC guidance is currently still being discussed. I believe vaccinated will not have to wear a mask. It will be optional. Non-vaccinated will have to wear a mask in common areas. Thanks for that, Charisse. And by the way, drop your company name whenever you get a chance. Wade's asking, will we see an issue trying to get employees back into the office? Any thoughts on that, Laura? What are you hearing from other of your clients?
Yeah, I have heard that issue where, as employers are starting to tell their employees, hey, we're thinking about coming back, and they're getting some pushback from some of their employees that they may not necessarily have a medical condition, but they're just afraid to come back, because you'll hear some that, well, I have somebody that lives with me that's at higher risk for COVID. So are we seeing that? Absolutely. And sort of what we're telling people is that, be very open on what your safety protocols are and let them know, here's what we're doing. Give them the opportunity to, express whatever those concerns are. And some of them may be easy that you can address. Some of them may not. For example, I had one where it was an office environment and they were in cubes. And even though they were only doing, shifts where certain people could come in on different days, you had one employee that's like, I want plexiglass around my cube. But it was so cost prohibitive that particular employer couldn't do it. So all they could do was just reassure, hey, look, we're not having full capacity. We're only having certain people come at certain times. We're having that social distancing and we're requiring masks. So it's just really important to really communicate what your protocols are and how that's consistent with the guidance. But at the end of the day, if you have an employee that says, I don't want to come to the office because I'm afraid, as an employer, you can make that decision to say, you know what, I need you to come back in if you want to keep your job.
Got it. So then we have Jenna Glasser. She says to Wade and everybody else, hey, on the flip side of this is also true. You can use it as a recruiting tool for those in the past who weren't able to work remotely due to the role type. So Jenna, can you, say a little bit more on that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I did actually recently switch jobs during the pandemic, right? So I went from a 10,000 plus person global company to a much smaller company. And in the larger one, which was in bank operations, there are a lot of jobs that cannot be done remotely, period, right? There are also a lot of jobs that in the past, because they're entry-level workers, have been considered things that shouldn't ever be done remotely. And in the beginning of the pandemic, we got up and running remotely. And that has enabled us to use as a recruiting tool this option of like, hey, you don't have to be in the office every day. And as we come back to offices, continuing to do some of that remote work, which also allows a large company to let go of a lot of commercial space and use its space more efficiently and save a lot of money while also recruiting talent. We do have, I think somebody mentioned, because we were or are in a number of locations, right, a significant variation across sites in what the protocol is. And so the tendency is to move towards the more conservative approach to make sure that things are consistent. And it's interesting to be managing a site in Southern California where everyone's in a red zone or a purple zone, and like a site in Arizona where people are getting pedicures at the bar while they're drinking cocktails.
Yeah, life is interesting. People are interesting. So Craig, what about you? I know that you said y'all are thinking about going back in a week. What's on your mind after all this we've talked about?
Yeah, well, we have a really, really interesting workforce in a good way. It's 75% of our employees are scientists, so or interns from PhD programs. And so I think our issue is that I believe that nearly everybody is going to be vaccinated and already has been. So our issue is more letting remote workers make choices for their own flexibility. We have offices in Silicon Valley, in Boulder, Colorado, and in New York City. So just dealing with having one consistent policy and dealing with the 3 different locales that seem to be doing different things. Silicon Valley, where we are, is still very much controlled by the county. And so they're still mandating masks. And then just dealing with the one-off, I think there's probably one person that I've even heard of that has a big concern. But her concern is more not necessarily about everyone being vaccinated. It's in our office, we are in an office building and there's public restrooms, and she's more concerned about other people coming into the public restroom without it being cleaned after each use and the counters. So it's good to have very, very intelligent PhD scientists as your employees, because they all see the value of vaccination.
Exactly. Holt comes back and he says, hey, we're getting significant pushback on a return to work. It's essentially a pay cut for employees who have been working remotely for the past 15 months, you know, gas, insurance, lunch, et cetera. As Labor and Employment Counsel, I personally noticed fewer hotline complaints, fewer EEOC charges, and less office drama. Anybody have any comments to that? So then Nelvi Garcia, hopefully I got that right. How are companies addressing the issue with employees with small children who are not able to get vaccinated? That's a great one. Laura?
Yeah, so the EEOC guidance is that you only have to accommodate the employee that has a disability. So if you have a younger child or even someone at home that's at high risk, you don't have to accommodate for that. Now, with that being said, you're going to have some employers that, you know, they want to take care of their employees and are concerned about their families. So they are still allowing kind of that flexibility to allow some people to work from home if they're with somebody with kids that are not vaccinated or living with somebody at high risk. So the law is you don't have to accommodate, but I think we're seeing that employers are still trying to be understanding.
Got it. Anybody else out there? Nancy Fan, Russ Moroz, Abdel Sander, anybody? Got anything that you'd like to add or share with the group?
Hi, this is Nancy. You know, with my company, we really are trying to understand each individual's situation. And so we're going into a space where we are coming back into the office. We are, you know, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear your mask. But if you are not vaccinated, please wear your mask in common areas. The great thing is we have seen the great work that people can do from home. And so we're having this flexible schedule where, you know, we want you to come into the office 3 days a week, and everyone comes in on Wednesday. So that Wednesday is just like a great time for everyone to coordinate and work together. So that's been helpful for us, but we're only about 100 people in the office at this location. And the rest of our workers, they work in the sites and in the field. So we're really just trying to keep them safe as well.
Right. Got it. Dozier, Scott Dozier, thanks for that, Nancy. So he says, in a sales role, we're seeing and feeling the pressure for more face-to-face interactions, both with clients and collaborators. As a fully vaccinated person, I feel safe, but we accommodate clients and partners as needed. Any thoughts about this, Laura?
So I think there are some roles that just really need that kind of that face-to-face. I know I've just heard a lot of companies that, you know, while we can work remotely, we're missing that connection and that kind of collaboration. And I think particularly in a sales role where you're trying to get, you know, your customer to buy something, and that face-to-face really helps with that sale. So I guess the answer is that, you know, it's up to the employer whether they think it's essential to have that face-to-face. But, you know, it's kind of up to you on how you want to deal with it. Because I think we have learned that can you work remotely? For the most part, yes. But I think you're still going to have that lingering, well, we think it'll be better or you'll be more productive if it's kind of an in-person. So, you know, it's kind of up to that particular business on how they want to address that.
And Laura, this is Scott with ABG. just to kind of follow up on that, we've seen activity go up significantly in terms of, sales, new business, new opportunities. And it is being driven face to face. And there is, even on the client side, they're wanting to meet with us, see us, and have body language and all that good stuff. So there's sort of a balancing act we're having to do there, and a bit of a, my role is it's just kind of like walking into the HEB. If the HEB requires it, then I'm going to do it, right? Same thing with the clients and how they want to set things up in terms of face-to-face interaction. And so that's how we're treating it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right, is that for the law perspective is, can you require your employees to do that face-to-face? And if you can show that that's essential, that particularly in a sales role, that you're not as effective and you can't make those sales if you're not in person, then you can say that's essential and you can require it. But if you're in the situation where, the stats look like whether you're in person or doing the Zoom or any kind of Teams meetings that works the same, then that's going to be harder to show that that's essential and to require. So that's what you kind of boil it down to. Can I show that that face-to-face is essential to really perform that job?
Thanks, Laura. And that's the last word on the group discussion for the show today. So how was the discussion in networking? FTE post-show notes will hit your email later today. You'll need to take a 30-second survey in order to get your copy of today's attendee contact list. You'll also find links to the FTE videos and podcasts from previous shows. FTE belongs to you. It's your community and networking platform. Don't forget to follow up and connect the dots with each of these people after the meeting. And oh, by the way, if you are somebody is working on an innovative next generation idea, technology, or business model and want to share their challenge where they are now with the FTE network, let us know in that survey. We'd like to connect and learn more. Good experience on FTE Day? Great. Share it. Build this community with others that you want to. Forward our newsletters and invite your connections to our events. Folks, we're out of time. Be sure and join us for our next events. June 2nd, a Share, Match, and Meet Classic Networking Roundtable, Leads and Needs, Market Outlook. Invite your colleagues that you want to get to know better. Networking has never been more important to your business, so show up on June 2nd. June 15th, this was a lot of what we talked about. This is about setting up the hybrid workplace for success. We're really pleased to have Arion's head of IT, Josh Mank. He's going to share their hybrid workplace approach and address some of the key challenges and wanting some input from your own lessons learned there. So sign up right now on the website, fte.network, fte.network. Invite your friends, please. It's bonus time. That means if you'd like to spend a few more minutes with our expert, please accept the bonus room invitation coming from Gus right now on your screen. So thanks once again, Laura, and the Porter Hedges crew. Well, and all of you for making FTE Tuesdays the smartest 45 minutes of your day. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks or in the bonus room. Thanks again for the great conversation.